I'm joined now by Inside Track F1 columnist and Canadian Motorsport Hall of Famer Jeff Pappone to preview the upcoming Canadian GP this weekend. As we entered the GP, we have McLaren on a roll. They won the Constructors' title last year with Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris combining for 6 wins, but it was Max Verstappen who won the Drivers' Championship. This time around, we already have 7 combined wins between Piastri and Norris. McLaren with a big lead in the constructors' title, and Piastri with a 10-point advantage over Norris in the drivers' points. So, the teams that we seem to have been talking about more or less over the last several years have been Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari. How has McLaren sort of found their way to the front of the pack?
Well, I think most of the other teams would want to know the answer to that question. I don't know what their inner workings are, but they certainly have found something in that car that makes it better than everyone else. And I guess also the drivers really adapt well to it. So they have the advantage right now. And I mean, you go into every race weekend, and McLaren is the team to beat. Max Verstappen can work miracles with that Red Bull, and he's been able to keep it at the front. But I think, Canada is going to be who can beat McLaren. And I think on top of that, it's who can beat Oscar Piastri because he seems to be the team leader now, and he seems to be the driver that's on a roll and who's really making things happen. And that's a big turnaround at McLaren as well, because I think Lando Norris was the team leader there. He was the guy that everyone expected to be champion. And now he, may end up playing second fiddle to the young guy who's come in and really taken the team by storm.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting battle to watch, certainly as the season goes on. Either one of them would become a first-time F1 champion. And I know as far as the Canadian GP goes, we've seen Max Verstappen win the last 3 years coming out of the pandemic. Granted, we saw him win, I guess, in many of the places he's been, but Norris was that runner-up finisher, top McLaren driver last year. Who'd you expect to contend, I guess? Within, but also, who else could have a chance to beat the McLarens this weekend?
Well, like I said, I think McLaren is the team to beat this weekend. Max Verstappen is always a challenger. He's always someone you have to watch for. There may be rain during the race. We're not sure yet what the forecast holds, but the long-term forecast is talking for a chance of rain on Sunday. If that happens, Verstappen is always in the mix. Ferrari has run well in Montreal in previous years. I'm not sure how well their car will be adapted to Montreal, but I think you can't count out Charles Leclerc either. He's always seems to qualify well, and he seems to have good race pace. But I mean, if nothing goes wrong for McLaren in Montreal, I don't see how fans can expect anything but Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris fighting for the win, and maybe Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, maybe George Russell fighting for that last podium position. Mercedes has been one of the more consistent teams this year, so they probably will be doing things to keep them in the front. And Kimi Antonelli has showed flashes of brilliance. He's still a rookie and still learning, but they're there too. So we can keep our fingers crossed that the teams will bring some upgrades, or the upgrades that they have brought will bring them closer to McLaren in Montreal. But I think overall, you got to think that it's either Oscar or Orlando.
Yeah, definitely seems to be the case so far this year, but could be an interesting battle, as you mentioned, some of those other drivers for that bottom step of the podium. And one driver, former Mercedes driver, who's seemed to do really well in Canada is Lewis Hamilton, 7 wins and 10 podiums in Montreal, and that includes 6 podiums in the last 8 seasons. But now with Ferrari, he seemed to have struggled a little bit so far this season, has yet to reach the podium. What can fans expect from the 7-time champion this weekend?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, we all remember Lewis winning his first Formula One race in Montreal in 2007. So I mean, he's got history there, and he's always run well there. He seems to like Montreal. He seems to like the fans in Canada. So it always kind of gives him a little bit of a boost. But the reality is he's not as quick as Charles Leclerc in that car yet. And I mean, we always think that a guy's going to jump into a car and be fast automatically, and it's talent over everything. But Formula One cars are not the same. and he's learning a car at Ferrari. He's trying to figure out how to make it fast, trying to figure out how to adapt it to his driving style, which is different than Leclerc's. And he hasn't been able to do that. And I mean, I think if you look at drivers when they change the regulations, some drivers falter. Some drivers aren't able to adapt to the new style of car. And I don't think Hamilton has, even to the new car that was introduced in 2023. And if you look at someone like Sebastian Vettel, he did never adapted to the hybrid cars ever. He always had problems with it, always had to adapt his driving style, and he could never make them go as fast as he wanted them to. Other drivers have just gone to them like Max Verstappen loves the car, loves the way that it works, and loves everything about it, and it shows on track. So Lewis is going to need more time, and his first year is, maybe by the end of the year, we'll really see Lewis Hamilton back to where he was a few years ago. Maybe we won't. We also have to remember that he's in his 40s now, and Fernando seems to be able to keep going no matter what, but maybe Lewis is at the point where he might want to think about doing something else. I don't want to tell a seven-time world champion to retire, but there's been talk that maybe he just is at the point of his career where he's not going to be on an upward trajectory anymore, and that may be the case. I don't know, honestly. But Fernando is always the anomaly. He seems to get the most out of every car he's ever driven, and it doesn't matter if he's 22 or 42 or 45. He's going to be fast. So you never know.
Yeah, definitely will be something to watch. Lewis Hamilton's success coming just in the 2010s for a lot of those championships in a row. But you always forget about the fact that he has been around, I guess a couple decades at this point now since that early success. And you mentioned Fernando Alonso, his teammate, the Canadian Lance Stroll, missed the last race in Spain with what the team described as lingering pain from a medical procedure in 2023. What's the hometown driver's status looking like for this weekend?
That's a very good question too. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be racing in Montreal, and if he's going to miss his home race. That's a distinct possibility. There's questions about who would replace him, whether it would be their reserve driver, whether it would be someone like Valtteri Bottas. Who knows? But there's been nothing from the team so far about Lance's status for the next race. And um, if he's got hand pain and he needs to have some sort of surgery or needs to have some kind of physiotherapy, I don't know if he'll be ready for Montreal. We'll find out, I guess, on Thursday what's going on.
Yeah, that'll be something for people to watch for, and certainly you would expect him to be on hand, if nothing else, this weekend in Montreal. And assuming he does start, he's had six prior starts in Montreal. Best finish of seventh came last year, but he hasn't had the best season after the first two rounds. Best finish of 15th since that second race of the season. So, what can fans expect from the Canadian this weekend should he suit up and be behind the wheel?
Well, I think the season started well for him. He had some good finishes to start, but as you said, since then it's been going downhill. I think Aston Martin is just behind the eight ball with their car. They just haven't brought something that's competitive. Fernando seems to be able to get more out of it, but I mean his points have been terrible too, right? He's not been there either. So I mean you have two drivers who can't really get anything out of that car. So I mean you have to think that it's probably the car. And if things don't change, they're going to be where they are and they're going to be where they've been. And uh, Lance is good in the wet, so if it does rain and he does race, he probably can get something out of that car. He's been able to do that in the past. I think his only pole was in the wet, so he has that ability, and he seems to have fun driving in the wet. But I mean, if it's a dry race and Aston is there, I don't even know if a top 10 is possible for them.
And you're no stranger to covering the race in Montreal at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, the famous track on the island. What will be some of those keys for teams to find success at the track this weekend?
Well, I think the big thing for Montreal is your brakes, right? It's a very stop start crack and straight line speed because there's that long straight from the hairpin all the way to the last turn before the start finish straight. So you need to have those two things. So you need to make sure those brakes are cooled. As we've seen, I can't remember what year it was, but we had teams, I think Williams and Toyota were disqualified for having their brake ducts be too big. So teams try to do whatever they can to make sure their brakes will cool, and the cars have to be slippery. They have to be able to get the top speed on that on that straight and make sure that they're really motoring because if they don't and they have too much downforce, they're just going to get eaten up. So I think those are the two big things. The track was resurfaced, so that's a positive, and it helps everybody. So, I mean, it's just a matter of adapting to that track and making sure that you have the car set up the way that you need to for maximum performance there.
Lots of action throughout the weekend. I know you'll have reports with the press conferences as well as practice, qualifying, and of course the race itself. So fans can tune back to InsideTrackNews.com for the latest updates on the Canadian GP throughout the weekend. Jeff Pappone, thanks for speaking with me to preview this weekend's race.
Thanks, Bryce.